Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the journey. And as many of you who follow the journey know, that this is a series of interviews that we have guests on that talk about their stories of transformation, how they are attempting to recreate themselves along their journey, or possibly that they've had some type of obstacle in their life where it has caused them to have a setback, caused them to be derailed off the path they were going. And the important aspect of what did they learn about themselves as they were facing that obstacle and moving through that setback. We also have reflections throughout a time period as well. And at this time of year, when we start thinking about how do we want 2022 to go, what would you like to accomplish in 2022? What do we have the resolve to do different with our life? We've talked about the idea of the difference between living with intention about something that we want to add in to our life, such as kindness or paying it forward. Could be as simple as the opportunity during the winter months of shoveling your neighbor's driveway, or in the fall, maybe it's raking a neighbor's leaves. Maybe it's a small gesture of picking up something that isn't supposed to be on the ground, and putting it either in a proper place, or throwing it away, or returning it to the possible previous owner. It could be as simple as smiling when someone's passing you in the hallway, or opening up a door for someone. We never know when those types of gestures um, could have an impact on someone else, give them a possible light in their darkness. The thing I want to talk about today is this idea of a tendency to be drawn to or attracted to when someone makes a mistake. Um, just recently, I was watching the NFL playoffs, and it was amazing to me, of the 8 teams that were playing in the 4 games the winners would go to the conference championship. I was amazed of how competitive. Uh, how competitive these games were. Each game of the 4 games came down to the final seconds, and then with the final game of the 4 games, it went into overtime, and it was won in overtime. It was, for as a football fan and someone who enjoys watching that particular sport, it was um, it was probably the best example of the best players playing at their best all the way to the end. Individuals that the scoreboard did not reflect a win were also played as true champions. Uh, a football game is a finite game where there is going to be a beginning, and there's rules along the game, and then there is a point where the time expires, and whatever score is the highest, that person is deemed the winner for that particular game. So those finite games have very specific rules of engagement. The majority of our life is more described, as Simon Sinek says, an infinite game. And so the rules are much, much different. There is not a beginning or an end. It's an ongoing process. So even though there may be a setback, even though there may be something to appear to be something is lost, and never to be regained, it may just be a pause, or a time to regroup, or a time to learn something. Um, Equally, when you have an opportunity to what appears to be successful at something, um, that may be an opportunity to celebrate and savor that moment. At the same time, that may not automatically mean that it carries over to the next day. Recently, I saw something that Albert Einstein had once wrote on a chalkboard. He put on a chalkboard. Math equations: 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36, 9 times 5 is 45, 9 times 6 is 54, 9 times 7, 63, 9 times 8, 72, 9 times 9, 81, and 9 times 10, 91. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the classroom because Einstein made a mistake. Obviously, the correct answer to 9 times 10 isn't 91, and all his students ridiculed him. Einstein waited for everyone to be silent and said, "Despite the fact that I'd analyzed 9 problems correctly, no one congratulated me. But when I made one mistake, everyone started laughing. This means that even if a person is successful, society will notice his slightest mistake, and they'll like that. So don't let criticism destroy your dreams. The only person who never makes a mistake is someone who does nothing." I think Einstein put it well with this idea that that we have a tendency to gravitate toward when someone who is has to have success, and then they make a mistake and they stumble. Or we may have a tendency to just look for those mistakes and point those out. I'm not 100% sure why this happens. I know that, biologically we are designed for survival. So this very primitive reptilian part of our brain is set up that if maybe it's set up for a finite game like the football game, winners and losers, versus an infinite process of ongoing relationship. Maybe there was a time period where it was more important to make sure that if someone did make a mistake or someone had a setback, that you worked hard to exploit that so that you could then utilize that to your advantage to develop and grow. I think today, more than any time, we need to individually look at the opportunity to, one, in this particular case, as Einstein said and showed in his example to his class, maybe see that there's maybe a bigger lesson to be learned. Maybe it's possible that Einstein intentionally put the wrong answer on there to make a point to his students. Maybe he did make a mistake. And should we not have grace for someone who had gotten so many correct answers prior to this one mistake? See, I think all we can do is choose to live to uh, our life of having grace and compassion first for ourselves, and then grace and kindness and compassion for others. If we can do that, first for ourselves and then for others. Now, I'm not saying that we should give ourselves excuses for not preparing ourselves for that those setbacks or mistakes are also learning opportunities to maybe correct some behavior, make some lifestyle changes. Even in the midst of learning from those mistakes, maybe what we need to do is have some grace and compassion, that the behavior is something that we can correct, but maybe the person isn't what's wrong. Maybe it's the behavior was the mistake, not the person. As we've said many, many times, I have to first start looking at my own choices, my own behavior, my own tendencies before that I can give any feedback to someone else. Choose to be kind, choose to look for opportunities to pay it forward, and choose to give grace, because what appears to be a mistake may actually be an opportunity for growth. As always, thank you for listening, and looking forward to being with you next week.